So, I'm born and raised in Florida, and I hate it. I'm sick of the heat. I hate the humidity. I'm sick of the sun. If I never saw the ocean again, good riddance. I say all of that as a preamble to give credit to how fantastic these three books about mermaids are. For the first time in I can't even remember how long, they made me think about the ocean in romantic, magical, mystical, powerful, enchanting ways. And no, no, no. These are not your Disney Little Mermaid books. These are mermaids who will eat your face off. These are mermaids who have power. These are mermaids who will make you feel female power. So screw Ariel and Eric. I have three stories that are completely different versions of the mermaid tale, and each one powerful and wonderful and engrossing in its own way. We've got the mermaid of fantasy and folklore with a dark twist. We have mermaids that are sci-fi, horror, murderous mermaids. We've got magical realism, where the mermaids are a sisterhood of power and support that crosses species lines. All that being said, I'm Holly. I love books, I love plants, I love cats. Let's talk about it, mermaid style. Sirens by Emilia Hart. This one offers magical realism. There are sirens, there is magic, but this one is about a sisterhood. This one is about watching out for your fellow females, embracing your identity and your true self. It's got twists and turns, there's a mystery mixed in. It was a beautiful story. The book covers three timelines: Lucy in 2019, her sister Jessie's journal from 1998, and then we're back in the 1800s following Mary and her sister Eliza. The book kicks off with a strong, gripping chapter. Lucy kind of gets herself into some trouble. She ends up running away to her sister's house in Cromer Bay in Australia. However, when she gets there, her sister is missing. A large portion of this book is Lucy trying to figure out what happened to Jessie, and in doing so, she ends up learning a lot of stuff about herself. This is interspersed with these flashbacks to the 1800s. Mary and Eliza are on a convict transport ship being sent from Ireland to New South Wales in Australia, basically Cromer Bay, where Jessie's house is. Mary and Eliza's story is a hard read. It is about the women who could be convicted for pretty much anything and loaded onto these ships and sent away from home to essentially become slaves, forced wives, which is basically just another form of slavery. All of these stories are woven together and meet, pairing that with the beautiful and poetic writing of Emilia Hart. She was able to paint the ocean as something enchanting and beautiful and powerful and promising. And again, let me remind you about how I feel about the ocean. I found I would regularly reread a sentence just to stay immersed in the imagery. Not only do you have the ocean painted in such beautiful and haunting terms, there's also this creepy cave where all of these men have gone missing over the years. And so it has kind of an ominous presence in the town. But what starts out as almost a malevolent presence shifts throughout the book and starts to become almost a harbor of safety. It's a really nice twist that happens as the characters themselves are twisting and changing and becoming themselves and loving themselves. I will say men don't come off especially good in this book, but what is kind of depressing about that is all of the scenarios that are painted ring incredibly true. Not all men are bad, but having the men become the protagonist really enhances this feeling of a sisterhood that is cross species. There is a beautiful sense of power and comfort and safety. And it might be magical realism, but something about it was also beautifully true about sticking up for your sisters, sticking up for your fellow females, being a voice when you can. There was a big old honkin' twist in this book. I didn't see it coming. When it did happen, loved it. Loved the world building, loved the magic, loved the characters, loved the female power. Read Sirens for an uplifting summer mermaid magical story. Ticked all the right boxes for me. Now, do you want murderous mermaids? Do you want humankind having a healthy dose of humility? My sci-fi horror recommendation, Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This book will give you the sea as a terrifying, mysterious, horrifying entity filled with the creepiest, most terrifying predators you could imagine. If you want a great late summer read that's going to push you right into the creepy vibes of October, this is the book. The majority of this book even takes place in the end of August through the majority of September. So it's the exact perfect end of summer book. This book made me start questioning if there were actually mermaids. The book is embracing this premise that mermaids are actually based off real predators of the deep sea where we really haven't explored yet. The idea is that these creatures are hiding at the base of the Mariana Trench and we find them. Or they find us. It's pretty bloody either way. The premise of the book is that this entertainment company called Imagine has sent a vessel out that's essentially a glorified cruise ship retrofitted to be a research facility as well. It's full of scientists and specialists and camera crews and security personnel who are there to try and find and document mermaids. The reason Imagine has undertaken this is because 7 years prior, they sent another ship out with the purpose of essentially being a mockumentary. They were trying to make a film with actors being the mermaids and accidentally found real mermaids and they massacred everybody. But the public doesn't really believe this happened. The people who are aware of the footage think it was just a staged thing. This was all just part of a film that never got made, and it was a whole other catastrophe that happened on the open seas that led to these people's deaths. Very few people believe there are really mermaids from this footage 7 years prior. Imagine is setting out to prove otherwise. The tension of this book drove right to the last pages. I was down to the last 10 pages of the book and I thought, there's no way this is going to be wrapped up. There must be a whole nother book. Nope. It just drove right to the last sentence of the last page of the book. It wrapped itself up, but it'll leave you feeling exhausted by the end. This book ended up having multiple interesting social commentaries. The cruise ship is full of scientists. Most don't actually think that there are mermaids, but to go out on the ship was an excuse to have access to all of this incredible equipment and the deep sea and funding to do all the research they would want for at least a month. The book makes a pretty interesting point that this entertainment company had much more resources to undergo this big research expedition than actual scientists get their hands on. Imagine is funding the research, not scientific communities. There's multiple references to how scientists are desperate to find the next discovery to keep funding flowing. There's not a lot available in the research community. It is everyone fighting for their piece of that pie. Whereas Imagine, an entertainment company, they had the money to just throw at this. So Imagine builds this huge ship, the Melusine, and it sets forth to the Mariana Trench to track down mermaids. On board, you have a whole cast of characters. Some make it to the end, some don't. There's a lot of really good character development for how many characters are in this book. You have Tony or Victoria. She's a researcher whose sister Anne actually went missing on the first vessel 7 years prior. And Tony's whole mission is to validate what happened to her sister and find answers. You have Dr. Gillian Toth. She is a professor who specializes in the research of mermaids. She's one of the few people who has always believed that mermaids existed. And in fact, she's the one who pinpointed it as the Mariana Trench as the place to explore. There's a couple big game hunters who are on the ship, and their whole purpose is to essentially bag themselves a mermaid if they show up. They're pretty deplorable characters who, it's very upfront, they're essentially just finding an outlet for their own murderous natures. They'll kill pretty much anyone or anything they need to get their trophy. However, they end up being an interesting insight into when does the desire for conservation and preservation fall to the wayside when killing is what's left to survive. They represent the baser human instinct and acknowledging that we haven't really evolved past that. They are proud of the fact that they embrace that base human instinct. They think that is what we are at our core. We are killers, we are predators. And they're on the ship with a bunch of scientists whose whole thing is to understand and learn and grow and evolve. So they look down on these hunters, but at the end of the day, they have a point about it's kill or be killed. The humans find themselves up against a predator to match their own wiles and wit. I'm much more of the scientific thinking of wanting to learn and grow and conserve, but the hunters made a point. The scientists are also interesting characters. There is a respect to the absolute obsessive, compulsive, consuming work that the scientists do. It is their entire life's purpose, this research, the preservation of it. They are regularly willing to sacrifice themselves to have this research be passed on, so long as their name makes it into the history books. Which was also interesting because Hey, honey, Toffee's joined us. I've completely forgotten where I was. The fact that the scientists are worried about having a legacy, making it into the history books, it's actually paired pretty ironically with the fact that the big catalyst for this ship to even happen is because the CEO of Imagine, the entertainment company, he also wants his legacy to be more than the massacre that happened on the ship 7 years prior. So he's also worried about how his name is going to be remembered in history. The scientist and the CEO have different reasons for it, different motivations, but they ultimately had the same goal. What will their legacy be? What will they be remembered for? And what's worth it? If you want to be terrified of the water, if you want to never see the Little Mermaid the same, if you want to have the perfect end of summer, let's go right into spooky season book, this is it. If you want mermaids of fantasy and folklore, but with a dark edge, you gotta read All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter. This one takes place in the Sourdough universe. It's a larger collection of works that A.G. Slatter has written. However, you do not need to read any of the other books in the series to understand what's going on here. Each one stands alone, but if you read them all together, you catch nice little Easter eggs that reference all the other ones. This book features lots of Celtic and Slavic folklore, as well as some of the Sourdough universe elements, so you get lots of magical moments in this book. A lot of great world building. This one's following Mirren, an 18-year-old woman who is trying to get away from the family estate. It's understood early on in the book that her family, the O'Malleys, somewhere in the past made some kind of pact with the Mer people. And it gave them power, it gave them safety from the oceans. It has become a generational gift, but it's attached to the bloodline, and the bloodline is running thin. The story actually begins with Mirren's grandfather dying, so it's kind of down to just her and her grandmother. The grandmother is not a nice person. Mirren is basically just now waiting for her grandmother to die so that she can leave the estate. It's grown dilapidated. The family name really doesn't have the power or prestige that it once had. The bloodline is thinning, the power is thinning, and Miriam just wants out. She just wants to go live her life. Her grandmother, the not nice one, she has other ideas and is essentially trying to marry Miriam into power. So the story follows Mirren as she sets out on her own to discover who she is, her own past, what she wants her story to be, what she wants her name to mean, independent of this family generational pact. This book of the three has mermaids in it the least. Like I said, it's really about all these other folklores and magics coming together and trying to understand more of the backstory of how the mermaids fit into the O'Malley family. But it's always there, this creeping dread. There's all these references to how all the waters of the world are connected, and Mirren feels that she's being hunted, and no matter where she goes, every stream bed that she crosses, every lake that she sits beside, she feels the presence. She feels the ominous pull of these mer people. Something's wrong. Something's missing in the family backstory, and she's going to figure out what it is. I would say this book reads 50-50, like a fantasy and a mystery. The mystery of what is Mirren's background. She was raised by her grandparents because she was effectively abandoned by her parents, and no one is sharing the story of what happened there. So she's out to figure it out, all the while feeling like she's being hunted, not only by the mer people, but the person that her grandma wanted her to marry. She's on the run on multiple fronts. Also, adding to this feeling of a mystery is you don't get a lot of internal monologue from Mirren. It's very much more just reading her actions rather than what she's thinking. But she's so strong and independent. It actually just emphasizes that. She's just going to do what she's got to do to get things done. But it doesn't come across as flat or heartless. She's actually this beautiful, flawed, damaged, loving person who's just trying to figure out who she is and what is going on. There are brutal aspects to Mirren's story. She's no angel, but she's sympathetic and well meaning and growing stronger throughout the story. You're watching her evolve and come into herself, and you realize what a good place she's coming from. Her resilience is a thing of beauty. And then you get mermaids, not beautiful mermaids, not lovely fantasy mermaids, dark mermaids, powerful mermaids, mermaids that can hold a grudge, but mermaids that also follow the old ways and will hold up their end of a bargain. But at what cost? Of the three, All the Murmuring Bones is the one that is the fantasy, that is the world building, that will immerse you in a whole other universe and just give you some really great escapism. If you like this one, I highly recommend reading the other books in her sourdough universe. And that's it. That's my 3 recommendations of awesome mermaid books for summer reading. All I really want are spooky, creepy vibes. All I really want to read are spooky, creepy books. All I want to do is live in cold and dark and rain. Did I mention I'm really not meant for Florida? This year, I was really trying to get through summer, not reading books that were taking place in fall and winter, not reading my creepy, dark ghost books. I was trying to find a way to read through summer that kept me in the vibes of summer, that didn't make me long too much for October and Halloween and the kickoff to cozy season. I was really trying to find books that kept me grounded in the here and the now, in the summer and the heat, and mermaids. How did it take me this long to figure out mermaids were the way to go? I get so jaded by it living here in Florida. I needed someone to remind me of what the beauty and the mystery and the appeal of the water could be. I need you to put mermaids in it to do any of that, but it worked. These books gave me all the Summerween vibes, gave me the thrill, gave me the creep up my spine, gave me the escapism and the magic that I associate with my cozy months, but in a summer setting. And now I'm really ready for spooky season. That's it for me. If you have any comments, put them below. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Bye.